Hi everyone, so it's Andrea here from Admire PR and I'm here with Lucy Mowatt from Method Marketing, and myself and Lucy kind of knew each other many years ago in our equestrian kind of history, and it's really lovely to connect with you, Lucy. So tell us about Method Marketing and why you started your business.
Okay, well, so to backtrack a little bit, so I used to be a magazine editor, which is how I know Andrea, and I was doing that sort of since I left uni, did a bit of marketing on the side, really enjoyed the marketing and really wanted to develop it, and the time was right about 2.5 years ago where I decided that I was going to go it alone, so to speak, and so now I offer content marketing services to businesses in a range of different industries, from sort of insurance brokers and accountants to like a nutritional supplement company, to sort of an interim FD placement company, all sorts of different businesses doing things like writing articles, website content, leaflets, social media, PR, yeah, all sorts of things, really. Anything involving words, and I'm sort of there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's great because they're really similar to me. Like you find a project interesting and you can put some words to it, then you'll go for it. So yeah. That's super. So yesterday, we're in the UK, and yesterday evening we had Uncle Boris telling us what our route and roadmap out of lockdown was likely to look like. I'm personally quite delighted because it sounds like the kids are going to go back to school, which is really quite lovely. But what's it going to mean for our marketing, Lucy? Things are going to keep changing and quite rapidly, I think.
Yeah, I think that's certainly something that came through, is that society is going to be opening up again in theory, but it's going to be in a phased process. I suppose my thing is still that element of uncertainty, because they're not going to continue with the rollout if the number of cases spike. So there's still an element of having to balance projecting for the next 12 months and putting marketing plans in place, and then sort of also having to have, just in case another lockdown happens, having something in the back of your mind so that you can, I suppose, adapt, be flexible and agile.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, have you found with your clients that because they've had the experience of last year and the year we've gone through, that having that plan B and the backup plans is coming a bit more naturally? I'm seeing that, but I wonder what you feel with that.
Yeah, I think I'm noticing people are less prescriptive, so that they're having to adapt from the plan. So if X product was going to be their focus for a particular campaign or quarter, but actually if it doesn't work in lockdown, then we have to find another angle, and also look at what their clients want, because actually a lot of the time their clients' needs are changing constantly. So how do you fit in with that and keep that in mind? So, there's no point, I'm trying to think of a good example of, like promoting events and things like that if you can't have them, and how do you shift that, and how do you fit in with people who've got kids at home? How do you pivot and go online? And it's just trying to keep that in mind, because again, I think all kids are going back on the 8th in this country, aren't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think for me it's just keeping that uncertainty, and the clients have adapted. My clients particularly seem to have adapted really well to sort of saying, okay, so we just need to shift the focus over here, and keep this other thing sort of maybe ticking over in the background, but the core focus moves somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, do you have you come across people who, even though lockdowns have been going on for almost a year now, they are kind of still waiting for things to go back to normal, and there's still a bit of that, and actually, like, the world's changed. There's if you've got a business that isn't online, it needs to be online now to survive in some way. What tips would you give? There might be some people out there who think, actually, I missed the boat now. What do I do? And be a bit in a panic mode. What tips would you give for, where would they start with trying to move into a more online space, do you think?
Don't panic. I think that would be the first thing, is just to sort of take a breath, maybe get a big bit of paper and sort of start thinking about what that would look like. So maybe come up with a bit of a plan and a strategy. So think about, again, coming back to audience, think about where your customers are and what it is they're likely to want. There's no point in you starting, say, an Instagram channel, doing Instagram lives if your audience aren't going to be using that. So think about where they're going to be, and don't try and do everything. You don't have to be on every single platform. You know, it might be that actually having just a website would be an amazing step in the right direction. It might be that actually setting up an Instagram shop or Pinterest, or running events via LinkedIn. That might be where your customers are. So start thinking about that, and focusing on the one or two that are going to be the most practical for your audience and your potential customers. Don't try and do everything.
That's really good advice, because you see that, I don't know whether you've been on Clubhouse and seen like so maybe 4 weeks ago, like everybody wanted to get onto Clubhouse. It was the new thing. People were afraid of missing out if they weren't on it. And actually, I've actually made a few nice connections on there, but I'm not on there very much. But it's quite easy. It's quite easy, isn't it, to see these kind of like shiny objects and think, I've got to be on there. But you know, it is that taking a breath and stepping back and thinking, okay, are my customers here? Is this where I need to spend my time? And it is easy to get overwhelmed by the number of channels you can be part of. So yeah, that is really good advice. Talking about customers, and this is a conversation I've had with a few people recently, is talking about customer personas, and some people will say, oh, you really only want to focus on, you know, your one main customer, or someone else will say to me, I've got 5 different types of customer. What do you do? What's your process of looking at people's customers?
I would say it's okay to have multiple different customers, but I wouldn't have maybe more than 1 or 2 core customers. I think otherwise it comes a bit diffracted and you're trying to be all things to all men, which I don't think that necessarily makes for great marketing. It makes you sound a bit like you don't necessarily know who you are or who you're appealing to. So maybe pick your top 1 or 2 potential clients or personas, and really focus on them. There's no reason why you couldn't do, say, if you had a third, do a campaign that targeted them, but it could be more discreet and maybe less frequent, but focus on the ones that are probably going to be the most profitable and beneficial to your business.
Yeah. And when you're looking at your customers, do you have any nice tips for how people can find out information? Because it's not always the customers they've currently got. Sometimes they're wanting to look at new people. So what would you advise people to do?
So first thoughts is to go to their customers and ask them why they came to them, and dig into why those particular customers, why you have them. So if you could do maybe a survey, it doesn't have to be difficult, maybe a Google form or something like that, just to capture in a really short, simple format how they came to you, why they picked you, and that kind of thing, just to get a clear idea of maybe your messaging is erring towards something that you didn't quite realise. So your marketing sort of saying one thing about you that isn't necessarily what you thought you were going to say. I'd also look at sort of doing some straw polls on social media. So find out where you think your potential customers are. Maybe go into some Facebook groups and say to them and ask them questions around your industry, or what would be the barriers to sale, that kind of thing. I find that that's quite nice, and Facebook groups tend to be pretty active. So if you can find one that's relevant to your sort of niche and your industry, go and ask a few questions, get some feedback from your potential customers. And a lot of the time people love to be asked for their feedback anyway. Sometimes you get it even if you don't want it. Yeah, try and speak to them, do some market research, even if it's quite loose. It doesn't have to be necessarily that expensive, but just do some loose research.
Yeah, that's a good tip about Facebook groups, is they are active. And you're right, actually, if you do ask people for feedback, they're usually really happy to help out. I once created a ladies focus group for a cycle shop, and it was really good because people thought, oh, I'd like to be part of that kind of focus group and the decision making. And then we just had a few little special things just for them because they helped with the research on customers in the shop and that kind of thing. So that work quite well. Yeah.
Actually, if it's a passion pocket, especially, then, you know,
Mm.
people love, if you're into cycling, they'll love to give you their thoughts about what you could do better, because they are the people who are using your products and services.
Absolutely. That's great. Look, Lucy, thank you so much for this little insight into your marketing world. And I really hope that for your customers and your clients, this next year pans out to be a really good one for them, because we all deserve that. Definitely.
Yeah,
So
we do.
thanks for your time, and we'll have you back again and talk
Thanks for
about
having me.